So guys, today we're going to do a slight news roundup video, but one with a particular discussion that I'm sure many people are going to be interested in because I've been getting a lot of questions about this. So first, we're going to focus on David Zaslav's latest comments on DC, which I'm sure many of you have heard by now, about not wanting 4 Batmans or Batmen running around the DC universe under James Gunn and Peter Safran. And the big question on everyone's mind is, who is the Batman going forward in the DCEU or DCU, and the whole what if that impacts Matt Reeves' standalone Batman with Robert Pattinson. So I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into that, why I believe personally for now why it's not going to happen, but I'll definitely play devil's advocate and entertain a way that it could technically happen in my mind. If I was to actually think of it happening, I have to play devil's advocate. How could it happen? For those of you who are on the side of the Reeves into the DCU merge. But let's first get on to the meat of what Zaslav has been saying that is causing quite a bit of that discussion. And it's interesting to me because at the same time, this is like a conversation that is consistently brewing, but it doesn't really sound too dissimilar to what we've already been hearing, to be honest. So in this new article from The Hollywood Reporter discussing the advertising market and DC plans, it goes as follows. At DC, which is now being led by filmmaker James Gunn and producer Peter Safran, Zaslav said that the pair are coming close to the end of finishing a Bible for DC, an entertainment term for a document roadmap that outlines key characters and plot points. I think over the next few years, you're going to see a lot of growth and opportunity around DC. There's not going to be 4 Batmans, Zaslav said, and so part of our strategy is drive the hell out of DC, which James and Peter are going to do. I think they thrilled the fans. I think they're going to thrill you over a period of time. Now, just to put this out there, out of that very quote right there, there's a lot of fans out there. I'm not saying you, I can't speak for everyone, but there's fans, influencers, outlets who are misquoting what Zaslav said here, specifically saying there is not going to be 4 Batmans out there, somehow meaning that Zaslav said there's only going to be 1 Batman going forward. But where did he say that? I don't really understand. Now, this is where, though, again, I'm not trying to sound condescending or patronizing to those who do believe that, but on a factual basis, he didn't say that, but what people are doing now is reading in between the lines. If he's saying there's not going to be 4 Batmans running around, and his mention of, like, this more cohesive, condensed universe in the DC universe, akin to Marvel, that there must only be 1, right? Well, this is, I guess, what we're really exploring in this video. But let's put a pin in that for a second. Now we've also got some additional comments from David Zaslav on this matter in an article from Deadline yesterday saying as follows: about DC, a hugely undervalued asset. Disney did a wonderful job with Marvel, but if you looked at Marvel and DC 10 years ago, you would have said that DC is as good or better. But Marvel is a connected universe. It has a Bible. The key was having one person following everything. All of Marvel is in one place. You don't wake up and find that there has been a Batman TV show someplace. DC is one of the biggest opportunities for this company. Our company is a creative company, and so we found 2 great guys. Filmmaker James Gunn and producer Peter Safran started as studio co-chairs this month. You will see a lot of growth around DC. We haven't done a Superman movie in 13 years. The idea is to drive the hell out of DC, which is what they're going to do. Now, once again, as I'm looking at this, I don't see him saying there that there's going to be just 1 Batman in this, 8 to 10 year plan, this Bible that James Gunn is apparently close with Peter Safran to finishing this roadmap in. I'm not trying to sound like I'm being difficult here, it's just that's not what is being said. But what I will indulge in with regards to this fan speculation is that for sure, you can interpret his words here, of which he is quite literally saying, all of Marvel is in one place. You don't wake up and find that there has been a Batman TV show someplace, in their world of things, right? Could lead him to wanting every last drop of a project in a one big collected continuity of this DC universe moving forward, which will mostly arrive after the Flash movie. But to be honest, at the same time, despite these comments and despite what people's interpretations are, one interpretation I have is that I also read it that Zaslav doesn't want this kind of scattered universe from the previous regime of, oh, we've got like a Ben Affleck Batman popping in. Oh, we've got a Batgirl movie coming out at the time. Oh, we've got the old Batman coming in with Keaton in the Flash movie and with what once seemed to be him staying on in the DCU after that. Keywords being with what once seemed, because that's probably not happening anymore. And then possibly another Batman Keaton would be training to, I don't know, fill his place in that original DCU plan. And then don't forget, we had somewhat of a mini Batman Gotham TV show once upon a time on Fox. And then Bruce Wayne and Batwoman. Okay, that was hush. But then we've got a Bruce Wayne, Ian Glenn Batman in Titans. And then we've got a separate universe with Matt Reeves' Batman. This is kind of a lot of Bruce Wayne Batman. And the way I'm looking at it is like, you know, he's talking about making something that can rival the MCU, making it more of a, or giving the mandate to James Gunn. He wants to kind of fill that model. He's saying he doesn't want there won't be 4 Batmen running around. I think he just wants it a lot more condensed, and personally, this is just my take here. One that we're going to dive into in quite a bit more depth from here on out in this video, because I know everyone is talking about this right now. The whole, we're not going to have 4 Batmen or Batmans, however he phrased it, is a reference to him just not wanting an overabundance of Batman. But what I do need to state here is that with these comments being made, this doesn't automatically mean that Joker 2 for Leah Dua is going to be in the canon of James Gunn's DC universe with that 8 to 10 year plan he's carving out right now that is close to finishing. Nor does it mean that Reeves is the Penguin HBO Max show or the Batman Chapter 2 and, you know, what will eventually be the Batman Chapter 3, because he said a long time ago he's got the idea of 3 movies in his head. Pattinson has also reaffirmed the psychological roadmap for 3 movies. This doesn't mean that those will be in the same mainline continuity of, let's say, Henry Cavill's Man of Steel 2, which is obviously going to be in that new continuity of which James Gunn is sorting out right now with the DC universe. But on a side note, again, Zaslav reading this, it hasn't been 13 years since the Superman movie came out. I feel like people are just too scared to correct him, whoever works for him there. So, let's wind back the clocks a little bit, and I feel like this is important to do, and look at what Matt Reeves has said about his Batman, and in particular, wanting to do Batman his way. The reason why I'm doing this, because I know already some people could be like, oh, this is irrelevant. You know, back then, James Gunn wasn't really properly involved and stuff like that. Either way, I'm doing this to get in some context into what it means and takes for Reeves to want to do his Batman movies. And just why, for me personally, out of hearing everything Matt Reeves has said, and you know me, I keep my eye to the frickin' book on this stuff, I would actually be quite surprised if in the next couple of years it turns out that Matt Reeves' standalone trilogy was merged within the new DCU under James Gunn and Peter Safran. I do really heavily want to stress to anyone on the opposing, you know, theory side of this or view that this isn't me shooting down your theories or anyone's theories on this matter or your belief that this could actually be happening and we could hear about it in the next 7 to 12 months or whatever, because I've actually been having quite a bit of interesting back and forth, whether it's on video comment sections, Twitter, online, about this very subject, with many people actually believing that this is a big possibility, that, you know, Matt Reeves will still have Pattinson, don't worry, that's not in danger, the movies aren't in danger, but it's just that eventually there could be like a crossing over for him to be the younger Batman of the DC universe, you know, alongside with characters like Aquaman, Man of Steel 2, Henry Cavill, etc., etc. So yeah, just wanted to put that out there because I would hate for anyone to think that my decree or my opinion, my take is a holier than thou approach. I'm really not like that. You guys know this is just my interpretation and my perspective for now. And who knows, with the way DC is these days under a new regime and merger, I could be proven wrong. I do just want to put that out there. Not proven wrong about the Batman 2 being cancelled. Like, I'll ride that and say that it's not in danger, like Reeves' future movies, shows. Warner Brothers Discovery are heavily invested in that. I'm going to address that later because people are asking me about, Boba, you need to address rumors on cancellations and stuff. But if I'm wrong about the merger stuff, I'll hold my hands up in the future and say that. Like, I have no issues about doing that. It's just, this is what I believe right now. But the thing is, I'll just be pretty damn surprised if that happens. Just given what Matt Reeves has said, even right up until 2022. These aren't just old quotes that I'm pulling from years and years ago. So let's look at quote number 1. This is from the Business Podcast back in July 17th, 2017. Reeves talking about wanting to do his Batman movies his way. So the interviewer asks, there's 3 Batman movies in your head? And he's like, yes. And he goes on to say, I said, listen, if you want someone who's coming in from this perspective, because here's the thing, I'm also totally fine not doing Batman. It's not like I want to do any version of Batman. I want to do my version of Batman. And if that's exciting to them, which so far everything we've talked about is, then that's incredibly exciting because it means, wow, we're going to do something we're all excited about. And if they're not, it's completely their prerogative, right? This is their franchise. They own the characters. They're going to spend a tremendous amount of money. So I'm not asking anybody to do what they don't want to do. All I'm saying is, if we want to do the same thing, great. And if we don't, that's also okay. And so that's how I kind of started it. And the interviewer asks, you actually fell out for half a second? And Reeves responds, I did. Yeah, I did. Now, yes, this was back in 2017, but this was solely about him not wanting it to connect to a larger thing. If he's going to do Batman, he wants to kind of do it his way, but he's also totally fine not doing it if they want to do some connected thing. And this is what you're going to see a pattern of all the way up until this year, which is why I have quite a bit of reluctance to agree with the idea that James Gunn would manage to persuade Reeves to subscribe to a future merger of that Batman standalone universe that we saw in that first movie and we'll see in the Penguin and the Batman Chapter 2, all of a sudden a part of Henry Cavill's Man of Steel and everything else. Now, I do want to say with regards to this quote, granted that it was said back in 2017, because I've got some comments, as I said earlier, saying, dude, this was back in 2017. He probably didn't remotely want to be involved with the state of the DC connected universe back then, so it doesn't reflect today. Again, I don't believe his comments here were influenced by the state of the DCEU at the time. Like, honestly, I really don't. But rather him wanting to simply do Batman his way. I think that's all it is. And I truly believe that this is still how things stand firmly today in 2022, especially with these quotes that I'm about to read out from even more recent dates, of which, of course, I'll acknowledge Reeves does entertain interviewers' questions around the time the movie was gearing up to release about other superheroes, because of course, interviewers are going to ask, what seems to be this standalone universe. Oh, is Superman out there? Of course they're going to ask that. And of course, Reeves is going to entertain their question, right? So he does, in turn, offer a fun response to that. But still, in his answer, nonetheless, he doubles down on his stance. So this is 2022, I believe, January from Esquire. Here's the thing. I respect that the DC universe has become an extended universe and all the movies were kinda connected, but another Batman film, it shouldn't have to carry the weight of connecting the other characters from all those other movies. I didn't want them in there. So, that was 2022. Around the beginning of this year, the Batman was gearing up to release. I still feel like his opinion, I'm not speaking on behalf of Matt Reeves here, this is just my opinion. I still feel like, given what he just said there, but another Batman film, he appreciates the DCEU with all of these other characters and movies that were kind of connected. It shouldn't have to carry the weight of connecting the characters from all those other movies. I don't see why his stance would change with the Batman Chapter 2. Why would he magically, in a conversation with Reeves, just be like, okay, we're still basically in a very early period of Batman. Robert Pattinson, Bruce Wayne, the flooding, some short time after that, because we went over the timeline teasers in my previous video. Go check that out if you haven't already, but it's likely taking place between Batman year 3 and 4. I don't get why another Batman film, as he says here, but really we're talking about the Batman Chapter 2, should still have to carry the weight of connecting the characters from all those other movies. Do you see what I mean? Like, why does that disappear for Matt Reeves now? But let's go to the Collider February 2022 interview. Reeves entertains the idea of questions about Superman, but ultimately insists it's not his interest nor focus in this world or in follow-ups. So Reeves says, I want it to feel emotionally real and to make everything feel very believable. In this movie, even further, I think, than what I did in those films, and he's talking about the Apes films there, I try to find the practical, believable version. If suddenly in the Batman world you discovered that there was an alien that was Superman, there'd be a lot of shock. I mean, people would have to say, oh my god, and maybe that would be the one fantastical element. But to be honest with you, that is not the intention at this point, to figure out how to make that come. look, we should be so lucky that this is a world that people embrace and that they say, oh my god, we want to see what would happen when those things collide. I think if that challenge ever presents itself, it would be an exciting one to explore, but I'd have to try and do it through this lens. You know what I mean? And that is absolutely right. That at the moment, to me, this world is the place that I want to focus. I suppose it's not impossible to believe that somewhere down the line they could connect to something else, but that was not my interest in this, and it's not my interest in what we would do in follow-ups at the moment either. Now, a lot of people are hanging on to the words of at the moment, at the moment either. Again, this is just my take. It's not a fact. I don't know Matt Reeves. He didn't reassure me about this when he said at the moment, because a lot of people, as I said, are like, or he said at the moment, or it'd be an interesting challenge. I just feel like that's what you would say in an interview when you're being asked by an interviewer to entertain the conversation about Superman in your standalone, very specific lensed standalone Batman world that you've established. And he even says, it's not my interest in this, and it's not my interest in what we would do in follow-ups, but he adds the words at the moment either. It's just, I feel like the word isn't like being polite. This is just the way he's phrasing his sentence. I don't think at the moment either are die-hard words people should cling on to. What you need to cling on to is the pattern of what he is saying here. And the interesting thing is, even to entertain this for a second, even when Reeves entertains Superman and how that would be an exciting and interesting challenge to explore if he ever did do that, he does double down on how, but he'd have to try and do it through this lens. You know what I mean? And what I think he means by that is if he did Superman, it wouldn't be through like the DCEU lens, the kind of way we've seen Superman in Justice League or Zack Snyder's Justice League or BVS. He'd want to do Superman in the way that Robert Pattinson's Batman in that world of Gotham would view that alien from Krypton. Do you know what I mean? It would be done a little bit differently. So even if he did do it, I feel like he wasn't even talking about the DCEU Superman or whatever James Gunn is going to do. It would have to be through the Batman lens. Right, so let's get back to business now and evaluate this. He was still solidifying his stance there, more or less echoing the stance. He was talking about how he made an agreement to only do the Batman back in 2017 if he could have the full creative freedom of not needing to be beholden to that larger connected universe with other characters, right? And then echoing all the way up until the movie's release, saying that it's not his interest in what he would want to do in this or in follow-ups at the moment either. And so again, to the whole defense of, oh, I'm sure the DCEU back then is what put him off and why he just kind of wanted to do his own thing and that's what it's all about, but maybe now things have changed. I don't think it was ever about that. Even if the DCEU was like in a great shape back then, I feel like it's always been about Matt Reeves to have or to portray or tell a story that is personal to him, do it in his flavor, and the way for Reeves to kind of, mold or sculpt that is to not have it integrated into an existing fabric or existing universe with other characters out there. He needed to do it through his book. He didn't want to write a book for his first book, so to speak, that was already a part of a franchise of books, like Harry Potter. Like, no. If I'm going to do my wizard story, or my Batman story in this case, he wants to make it his own project, his own stamp. That isn't connected to this larger lore. Obviously, there's these characters that are technically out there, technically in the Batman, right? Superman could be out there and stuff. But you see what I'm getting at. That's what it's always been about for him. I don't think he was put off by the actual idea or state of the DCEU back in 2017 or now. I think it was always about having that creative integrity for his vision. And if that couldn't be given to him, he was like, well, okay, with all due respect, I'll turn it down. And he even said that they did have a bit of a fallout over a second there, but WB, under the old regime, I will say, gave him that offer. So for me, where I'm at with this is for me to personally believe that Matt Reeves, as people are starting this discourse right now with, for him to have rolled over with James Gunn stepping in with this new DC Bible they're creating, this 8 to 10 year plan, it's just still quite a hard sell for me to believe. When talking about this with a subscriber, as I mentioned earlier, I believe by the username of G in a previous comment section, they said this analogy, to which I think is quite interesting and I think represents quite a lot of what fans believe on this other side of the fence who think it could happen in terms of that of a Reeves Batman and universe merging with this James Gunn DCEU happening in the next couple of years. In that, ask someone if they want a soup on the hottest day of the year, they'll probably say no. Ask them again on the coldest day Day of Winter, chances are they'll say yes. With regards to James Gunn having already spoken to Reeves, like he said recently in a post saying that when he came into his role, he was actually one of the first people he called, so maybe this could actually be happening, and maybe he has actually accepted the soup, because it's, it's a different time of year now, a different time. But I don't know, man. I don't think that applies, given everything Matt Reeves wants, everything I just said, everything I read out. It's a weird thing for me to kind of defend because, I haven't spoken to him and I can't argue against that. Yeah, he could have technically changed his mind. I can't actually disprove that. I know that he's going to make his movies. That's still going to happen. That's so abundantly obvious. And we're going to get into that in a second. But what I'm now talking about is making those future movies in connection with this DC Gunverse, right? It won't be invaded by these other characters. Again, we're about to get into that. But just still technically having it in that universe. I just feel oddly confident that this won't be a thing Reeves wants to partake in still. And with going back to what we said earlier, with David Zaslav's comments on we're not going to have 4 Batmans, what it really means is we'll have Reeves do his thing, as we've praised him before and raved about before, but in the mainline DCEU, or rather I should say DCU, it's still taken a while for me to get used to that, just find a way to maybe have a new one, not have Keaton carry on as the main Batman after the Flash movie. But as for who that new Gunn DCU Peter Safran Batman would be in the future, with the new Man of Steel movie, all the other movies that will come in the future, Lobo, Mr. Terrific, God knows what he's doing there. Who would that be? We don't truly know. But what I will admit is that there is somewhat of a tectonic plate shift in the DC universe. And as James Gunn said, when coming into this new role, as I mentioned a second ago, the whole co-CEO of DC Studios, one of his first calls was Matt Reeves. But what I believe that call was about was more or less, keep doing what you're doing, you're killing it. Don't worry, even though I'm in this, creative position, I'm not going to be invasive on your lane. I won't be ushering you into anywhere you feel uncomfortable. But honestly, that's just my take. That's my speculation. I wasn't on that phone call. But it would be still, I think this is what I keep echoing, I would be surprised if, as we know for a fact, one of his first calls was to Matt Reeves, if he was like, look, I know you this whole time, even up until February this year, right before the movie's release, you were like, yeah, I don't want the other characters in there. I'm going to make you have these characters, or you're going to be beholden to this universe that you've so echoed that you don't want to be. Sorry, man, but you're going to kind of have to accept that. Don't worry, you're going to get the Batman Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. You'll be able to, continue your story, but you're going to be connected. Take it or leave it. Even though you've signed a first look deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, Zaslav has praised you. The higher ups at WBD may have said that we're going to give anything to Matt Reeves that you want. Do you really think I don't know. I don't think James Gunn would have done that. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. If somehow James Gunn in that call has had a call with Matt Reeves and spoke about a way for this to happen, there is a theory that I will entertain. And it doesn't compromise, Matt Reeves' vision, his future movies, the Penguin show, or anything like that. He could have said to Matt Reeves that, in the future of the DCU that is, and whatever soft retcons and reboots take place after the Flash movie when Barry fixes the timeline as best as he can, well, after the Flash movie, likely, but for the next several years, your Batman Chapter 2, Batman Chapter 3, you name it, won't remotely be invaded by other DCU characters, making it effectively standalone. So you might be thinking now, okay, well, if he would have offered him that, well, what's the point in connecting it technically to the DC universe if what that sounds to be is still effectively standalone? Well, some fans out there are thinking that perhaps after Reeves gets a chance to tell his story via the Batman Chapter 2, Chapter 3, these other HBO Max spin-off shows, GCPD, Arkham Asylum, and of course the Penguin, where maybe, just maybe, in where he once said, but to be honest with you, that is not the intention at this point, to figure out how to make that come, he might, many years from now, be interested in figuring out how to make it connect to these other characters. So it would still mean, as of today, and next year and the year after that, that it's literally not his interest, but one day, it could be. But as you see at the same time that the original vision for the Batman Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 still effectively somewhat makes Robert Pattinson's Batman and Reeves' lens on his trilogy standalone for the foreseeable future. So you could argue James Gunn said something like that. How do you feel about maybe kind of, in name, putting it in our DC universe? but we won't have these characters invade your movies. You're still going to do everything you planned with Matt and Tomlin for the second movie. No other characters, don't worry about that. Third movie, everything like that. But would you be open for Robert Pattinson, if he's interested, to maybe allow this world to branch out? The thing is, even with that theory, I don't know. I don't think so. And so for now, my take is just this. I think Zaslav simply doesn't want multiple Batman candidates running around like we went over earlier. He's got his top dog, James Gunn, on the creative side, making this Bible for the next 8 to 10 years, road mapping out what DC is going to do to be a success in this new DC Studios DC universe. And I think they're going to try and either get maybe Affleck back after the Flash movie makes his timeline changes, allowing all of this Bible to take place in the future, if you will, or they'll find someone new for the mainline DCEU Batman, that is, and thus allowing Matt Reeves' Batman and Todd Phillips' Joker 2 to exist in their own separate continuity. I say that even acknowledging what Zaslav said about Marvel being all in one place. I think he does mean that for basically most things going forward, but I do think he still intends to low-key have Reeves do his thing. That's being successful. The HBO, he recently called the Batman, give Reeves Batman as his muse, have him do the Penguin. It's a killer combination. I just think he wants to really clean up and keep tight the main DCU universe, like, moving forward. But if I'm wrong about that, honestly, for me, it's gonna have to be a see it to believe it thing. And, you know, I'm not holding like a bunch of pride in this. Again, like, I'll hold my hands up if I'm wrong. And if Matt Reeves really does kind of change his mind, I'll just be so surprised about it. But if that happens, I'm gonna be here to make a video about it. We're gonna break it down. But for now, you know the road and the theory I'm subscribed to. And it's not even really a theory because it's what Matt Reeves has been saying all along, even up until this year. People can change their minds, but, you know, the way I even look at the future, if he did change his mind, you're not going to have Superman and Aquaman or whoever, right, just jump into the Batman Chapter 2 or Chapter 3. So if that's the case, you may as well keep the Batman standalone trilogy stand alone, unless the theory, as I went over a minute ago, is that after he gets his creative freedom with those 3 movies and shows, Robert Pattinson wants to stay on and basically hop between other characters and stuff as your typical DCU universe kind of Batman. But I don't know about that. It just feels quite separate to me, just like how Arthur Fleck isn't going to pop up as the Joker in the DC universe. I just think Zaslav is going to not want to greenlight lots of other Elseworlds type things in the future. He's going to appoint a Batman. James Gunn, I'm sure, is figuring that out right now in my theory. As to, maybe he's trying to get Affleck back. That's still a hard sell for me, because does Ben Affleck really want to come back for more than just small roles in The Flash and Aquaman 2? Either way, they're going to figure it out. Have a mainline Batman, but also have Reeves on the side. But let me know what you think about that, because clearly a lot of people are starting to believe that Pattinson, as people are saying, is going to be the DC Universe James Gunn Batman. But I feel like if you really, 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 really think about it and think, what would that even do to the second or third movie? And I don't think it would do anything, especially, you have to think with Reeves' vision as well. Like, it wouldn't really affect those movies, then what's the point? Now let's address, like, I thought this narrative was freaking dead now. I really did, but you know, it's a shame to see prolific outlets or other creators fuel this. But people are asking me to address the rumors on the cancellation of the Batman, how David Zaslav doesn't like Pattinson and just wants Batfleck moving forward and everything like that. That's how and why there won't be other Batman moving forward in the James Gunn DCU. It's just going to be Batfleck or whatever he doesn't like. Either way, I tweeted this out just to really try and stop all this BS. Because, look, don't forget, Matt Reeves LA signed a big first look deal with Warner Brothers Discovery. I'm sure you all heard about that, with all of these quotes from the higher ups at Warner Brothers Discovery. Zaslav stated, not so long ago as well that the Batman exemplifies what Warner Brothers Discovery wants to do. Zaslav said recently, they'll give Matt Reeves his Batman as his muse. Mattson, Tomlin, and Reeves are working on the sequel script as of right now. When signing the first look deal for Matt Reeves and Warner Brothers Discovery, comments like this were made. Someone like Matt will buy for him whatever he wants to do. We're making an investment for whatever Matt feels a pull toward, in the Batman universe and otherwise. He has an open invitation to go wherever his interests take him. We'll lean into whatever Matt wants to do. David Zaslav recently boasted about Reeves being one of the most talented guys in town, calls working with him on Batman and the Penguin on HBO Max a killer combination. And there are plenty more endorsements, praises, and everything from people like Zaslav, talking about the success of the Batman, everything like that I could list. But I feel like I shouldn't need to. This narrative needs to die. The Batman is fine in its future. But as for like the connected thing, that's like a whole other thing. What I am saying is that the future movies, like 2, that's coming. That isn't in danger. But obviously I can't guarantee that Matt Reeves didn't have his mind changed by James Gunn, even though I believe he hasn't. But that just about wraps up this video, ladies and gentlemen. So it's been a very lengthy one that I just wanted to ramble about. I wanted to give my perspective. I wanted to present the chronology of everything Matt Reeves has said right up until February this year, right? But also offer the devil's advocate thing, because I can't say for a fact that Matt Reeves would have changed his mind. Now my gut and my instinct is telling me, especially with how much he's affirmed not having it connected, and mainly it being about his lens, not his opinion on it being connected to a larger DCU. It's just his creative way of telling, is my analogy of the book earlier. He wants his book. He doesn't want to be a writer with his stamp on Batman, entering the canon of something else. His way of doing it was this way of doing it, the way he's done it so far. So, what do you feel about that? Do you think that Reeves could have changed his stance? Do you think with new leadership, for some reason he did? Maybe he rolled over and was like, you know what, yeah, screw it. You've told me that actually I can still do what I wanted to do with Batman Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, but just have it in name connected? Or do you think like you'd be like, nah, and James Gunn just did call him to say like, don't worry, man, I'm not gonna like creep in on your zone. You do what you're doing. Blah, blah, blah. So, like this video, guys, and thank you for liking it for those who did. Looking forward to read each one of your comments down in that comment section. If you want to stay up with more news discussions, reviews, and God knows what else I do on this channel, do consider subscribing. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you DCEU family, or DCU family. It's taking some time to get used to that, in the next video. Goodbye.